Smart strategy, real conversations, bigger margins. This is Chasing the Margin podcast.
Welcome back to Chasing the Margin. Today we have the GOAT, Kevin Ebbs himself. So, Kevin, thanks for coming on the podcast.
It's a pleasure. I appreciate it.
So, Kevin, you are doing what exactly? Tell us about you, who you are, why you're on the podcast.
Yeah, I think now the sentiment of my business is, around construction, remodeling, real estate development is kind of where things have turned into, which, happened pretty quick, but I think it's a great industry to be in at the time. So I think that's kind of where we're gravitating around.
Okay. And how are things going this year?
It's good. It's actually off to a really good year, and we've got some new businesses in the works. I actually am in the process of an acquisition I actually haven't even told you about yet, which is really exciting, especially considering the numbers and the revenue generation. So, and that's getting out of the construction space, but everything this year has been going great. I think it was a little rocky of a start to the year, considering some of the mental things and the process of this lawsuit selling my last company. But these last 3-4 months, we've really entered full stride, which is really exciting to be competing again.
Okay, that's good. You want to break the news to us here on the podcast?
Yeah, I think it'd be a good time. I mean, it's been kind of under wraps, but it's finally been inked, so it's official. And I haven't told anybody. I haven't even celebrated it yet. But ultimately, I completed a merger, acquisition to take on a influencer marketing agency. So last year, I looked at the numbers. We went pretty deep into it, and they're on track to do probably 1.2 this year. And just I don't think they ever really planned to get to this level. A lot of people are really talented at something, and they take on the business aspect, as a secondary, necessity. And now all of a sudden they've reached a level that they weren't prepared for. So we saw a lot of the hiccups and the burdens of overscaling and overperforming, and that's kind of how this relationship blossomed. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited to get into industries where the people in it are really passionate about it, because I'm passionate about business, So whatever industry I'm in, I drive my passion from seeing that the people in that business are really excited about what they do and the things that I do well, which is create infrastructure and organizations. That it really allows those people to blossom, So we just went through essentially the rebrand and came up with the new name and the new logo and, all that stuff, which is the fun stuff, right? And deciding what colors the company was going to be centered around and what our culture was going to be. So, that's a right now thing. This is transcribed and transpired over, I would say, the last 6 weeks, really in full speed. And, it's really exciting. I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to just see, the group of influencers that we have that are really highly vetted, right? We're not just taking on guys that have, followings and can generate money, but people who really believe in the things that they do. They really stand by their core audience. They stand by, the brand that they want to put out into the public, and just seeing that and being able to try and help take them to another level is really exciting.
So do you think that maybe these people, like kind of what you alluded to, are really good at the influencing space, but maybe don't have necessarily a lot of business expertise? Background?
And where I really noticed it, to be honest with you, especially I think this is the real core root of what you guys are doing and what this podcast is about. I originally was brought on to consult, and it obviously turned into that. But the first thing I noticed, to give you example of what I found, was they hired a business consultant, and I'm not speaking bad about him, but just giving perspective. He's charging them $3, $4, $5 a month, and all he was, and from they're great at their influencer space, and the leadership in that company was really good at generating revenue. They were really good at speaking to companies and corporations who wanted and were looking for influencers and were willing to pay a high ticket for that talent. But the other side of the business, which is the X's and O's and the things that aren't so flashy, the things that are also so necessary to make sure that you don't lose money and things aren't slipping through the cracks. Not only were they not good at it, they didn't have an attention to it. And I noticed this because when I first started to kind of look at it to consult, and I saw that their business consultant they only had for 2 or 3 months, had them doing all these spreadsheets. And from the very surface level, it looked really good, right? Because there was revenue reports, and there was P&Ls, and there was, loss analysis and projections. But when I really kind of peeled the onion back, I discovered, and this is why I say, you don't know what you don't know. But what I discovered was he was teaching her to essentially do data transfer. He was having her log into QuickBooks, which their bookkeeper was already had integrated into the banking system, and take that and put it into an Excel spreadsheet. So I don't really know how you justify that outside of just trying to give busy work. So that way, as a consultant, I can have you do something, and then once a week when I talk to you for 30 minutes on a Friday, I can justify why you're giving me $3, $4, $5 a month. But at the end of the day, she wasn't learning anything. And more importantly, she was not structuring the business to be able to handle its current success, or let alone, be able to prepare for more. So it was very evident, but also it was evident to me and it wasn't to her. She didn't know that, so that just kind of gives you a little bit of insight to answer your question as to the problems that were in the business that she wasn't even aware of. Because again, she's prioritizing what she does. She's prioritizing taking care of her core influencers and her talent and being able to generate them deals to put food on their tables. She wasn't focused on the things that they were kind of winging, right? And again, at the end of the day, it's really challenging to tell someone who doesn't know these issues that it is an issue, because the money's coming in, the bank account's still open, people are getting paid. So they don't foresee how big of a deal that is. And also at the same time, she's working 60, 70 hours a week. And if we had better processes and structures, which we're working towards, she wouldn't have to.
Right.
Well,
I know that like you are an exception to the rule, whereas a lot of our clients will be good at the construction space or good at the influencing space, but they're not good at the actual numbers. Hence, like you said, the margins. They're not good at understanding what the numbers really mean. And somebody may be seeing cash coming in, like you said, but just because you have cash coming in doesn't mean you're actually making money. You're just generating revenue. So it sounds like this may be one of those instances where you can bring your skill set of not only being good at running a business on the face of the business, but also actually making sure that the business is ultimately making money.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I've got a pretty strong philosophy that everyone in any business is one of two things. You're either a business person playing industry expert, or you're an industry expert playing business person. And as you do that for a period of time, yes, you can get good at that other one. But at the end of the day, you came in with a heavier side to one, right? I don't think it's possible that somebody's 50-50, right? Even if your skill set was the exact, level for both, there's going to be one you favor more. Everyone is one of those two things. And I've used this analogy plenty of times. If you're a fantastic plumber and you feel you're the best plumber at your plumbing company, so you decide to open a plumbing company because you want to be able to grow or whatever the case may be, there's a matter of time where you're going to find out you're not plumbing anymore unless you have, a business set up and an organization, because at the end of the day, all that stuff is necessary, right? If you're a great plumber, you start a plumbing company, well, eventually you got to do payroll. And eventually you got to be worried about, client acquisition and customer service and warranties and all of these things that, are not plumbing, and they're necessary to the success of the business. So at the end of the day, you're going to need to either create a process that allows you to delegate those things, or get into business with someone who's going to handle that side of things. I mean, because it has to get done, so I really firmly believe that. And what I've kind of tried my best to spend, my life's talent on is being that business person who can, get with people who are industry experts and alleviate that from them so that they can be in their industry, that plumber can plumb, because that's what he wants to do. That's his passion. That's why he started this company, is to be a great plumber and to be able to plumb for people. He doesn't want to be bogged down with the things that are not exciting to him. And for me, weird enough, those things are exciting to me. Obviously I kind of piggybacked this, or I would say branched off with, obviously the new business venture, but, right now, a lot of what I do is in the construction space. And I don't think, if you ask me at any point in life other than now, would I want to be in that space? No. It's not like I grew up and was passionate about it, or had someone that, it's just kind of where I found myself as the cards were dealt. And I love what I do, and I find a lot of enjoyment, and I'm very happy in it. But I'm not passionate about that. I am passionate about the ability to get into the industry and compete. But if you ask me, would I be doing this for free? The answer is no. And I truly think if you could go to somebody and ask them in their passion, would you, if livelihood was taken care of, right? So your rent's taken care of, your car note's taken care of. Like, what it costs for you to survive is taken care of. Would you do this for free? And I think if somebody's truly in their passion, their answer would be yes. None of the businesses I'm in right now I would say yes to. But I want to be very clear. I'm not unhappy. I enjoy competing. I enjoy getting into businesses and making things happen. I like to think that I'm a visionary, and being able to turn that vision into something that somebody else can walk into and be the face of that in their passion is what excites me most.
Yeah, I think that's good. I like how you put that. That's back to your original. Some people are really good at the actual craft, but then other people are good at business, and they just happen to find a craft that they also understood to a level where they could run a business doing that craft. I mean, I think even myself being in tax, I do enjoy tax, kind of the way that you explain the construction, but I really like business. I really like talking with business owners, and I like making a difference in their bottom lines, not just filling out their tax return. Like, it's not about the tax return. It's about helping them in general. So one more question on the influencer thing, and then we'll jump into what you're kind of been doing for a long time now. So is the influencer space, are they specifically just influencing? Do they influence in the construction and roofing space, or kind of give us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously there's a lot of, soon to come decisions as to what our scalability is going to be. But as of now, coming into it, they're very niche in the industry of moms, women influencers that are really heavy into brands like Target, Lululemon, Aloe, a lot of apparel companies, which really have, really large budgets in terms of marketing. And, obviously, one thing I say about business and time is if you really want to make good money, sometimes you've got to be in the right place at the right time. And a lot of that is intentional. It's being able to find the waves that may be temporary, right? Because a lot of people made a ton of money in Amazon drop shipping, and that industry's slowing down, if not dying. Being in the right place at the right time is not always an accident. It's about pivoting, and it's about making sure that you position yourself to take advantage of that moment. So, I think right now, over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, and who knows how long this will last, you got really large Fortune 500 companies that are publicly traded that are taking, 60, 70, 80% of what their initial marketing budget was, which was typically going towards large scale commercials, commercial spaces on television. And they're taking that budget and they're putting it into where they believe the consumer is: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, being able to get onto podcast, right? Rogan's making more money off of his advertisement than he is from Spotify. So right now, there's a great book that every business person's read, right, which is The Cheese Moves. The cheese is there right now. And at the end of the day, you really have two options. You can either seize that opportunity and try and get in the bullpen and compete, or you can watch it and at the end of it say, I wish I did, which is, what everybody goes through at some point, because we can't catch every wave, right? I wish I could go back in time and put a bunch of money in Bitcoin whenever that guy got on YouTube and begged us to, right? But I didn't. So now I have to kind of learn from that and see that, okay, I don't want to miss, too many more large waves like that. And right now, that's what's big. Now, the issue is, in any business and in anything you do, you have to draw a line in the sand as to how far you're willing to get out of your brand, right? If I decided that I wanted to start a restaurant tomorrow, and I've spent my life building a very good reputation, and I've spent my life trying to make sure that people can't say things bad about me, and we open a restaurant and we want to make a lot of money, well, there's going to be a line in the sand as to how far I'm willing to go. Where if somebody's upset, am I willing to comp their meal to preserve that reputation, or am I more focused on the dollar? Every business will have that decision tree. And in this particular industry, relevant to your question, I think we're very clear that we want to stay in that niche where we really know that these people and this talent, they believe in their product. Because unfortunately, with so much money in the industry now, you've got a lot of influencers that are just saying whatever they need to say for $1. They're sending their consumer base, which again, you have spent months, years, blood, sweat, and tears, hours, editing time, recording time. You've really put in a lot of labor hours to grow this following, whether it be 1,000 followers or 10 million. You worked for that. And those people, they support you. And if you start pointing them in a direction of which things that you don't believe in, but you're utilizing this opportunity to make money, you're going to tarnish your brand. And I think that the best thing about what Jess and I have really discussed is we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we choose profit over, protecting the brand and protecting the quality and protecting the reputation of ourselves and our brand and the business itself. So there is a lot of money in the space, and we have decided that we really want to make sure that we're in a position where we're only taking on talent that's recommending things that we stand by. So going across our initial evaluations and my deep dive into it, it's been a lot of apparel that I know is quality. It's been a lot of department stores that I know are legit. Nordstrom's really putting a lot of money into these things, and they're all things that I know you're not going to send a consumer and that consumer is going to get screwed, and I think right now the influencer space is really tarnished with a lot of these pop-up supplement companies and these pop-up energy drinks and all these different restaurants that are paying a good amount of money to these influencers to drive business, and they can't stand on their product, and there's a lot of supplement companies that are coming out in the space right now that are just it's just flour,
Right.
So there's a fine line, but that's in every industry. That's in every business. In your business, you guys, and I don't obviously know all the ins and outs, but I'm sure there's a decision where you have to say, well, we don't want to take on this client because they may be embezzling or stealing, or they may be making their money in a way that would tarnish the reputation of our brand. And that's kind of the decision that every business makes. But I think when you get into that, it's our job to vet that far more, because most influencers, they want to make money. They're not going to, most of them won't turn. And granted, we're the ones generating the deal. We're the ones selling the deals. We're the ones, making it happen. But the inbox is flooded, right? And it's our job to be able to really have a good balance behind getting them the money that they deserve, and also making sure that we're not putting them in bad deals that are going to hurt them or us in the long run.
Yep. Yeah, I think clients that are in embezzlement or tax fraud would not be ideal clients for us. So
Yeah,
we can go ahead and put that disclaimer out there.
for sure.
So then, using the example and the analogy that you just said, let's hear your real thoughts. If you were to own a restaurant, and let's say that it was a $500 meal
hmm
to just, let's say it's an average family of, two parents and their kids, they came to your restaurant, $500 meal, nice steak dinner. It was a bad experience. You knew it was a bad experience. Would you comp it completely?
Yeah. For me, I think that question really, obviously you're given a great scenario that puts somebody in the ability to think about it, but I think you have to boil every question down to what are you really asking? And what you're really asking me is, am I interested in potentially losing $500? Not even potentially. Am I willing to spend $500 out of our company, out of our business, to preserve what they're going to say, and in hopes, which you can't guarantee, and this is the decision tree, in hopes that they come back. And that is a gamble. And that's the decision that you have to make. For me, in order to make that decision, you have to first ask yourself, do I believe in our product? If your product's bad, they're not coming back. And that you may have to put your foot down and say, we need that. But for me, if I were going to open a restaurant in the way I am, I'm not going to open it if I don't believe in it. And I believe that whatever bad experience they had is not consistent of what we are. So I'm willing to spend however much money that meal may be. And frankly, that's how I've always been. If I've got to go negative on a deal to save this, I'm going to do it, because I also, contrary to just being a business person, I'm also a hustler. To me, I can make it back. I really believe that. If I've got to lose this entire deal for the causation of keeping our reputation, whatever I lost, $500, $5,000, whatever, we'll make it back. We will. So let's do right by this person, because this has just always been my opinion. I don't want there to be somebody out there, whether they be down the street or in another state, that can speak ill will about us. I don't like that feeling. I don't want somebody to walk out of our restaurant and know that they have the ability at a barbecue or at brunch or with their family or at work start to speak bad about us. I hate that. It's an itch that I don't like. If I'm not perfect. We've had some bad reviews left in some of our businesses. I've got a lot of sales guys who are out in the field, and some of them have lost a temper. And I've got guys who knock doors and unfortunately got doors slammed on their face and got caught saying stupid stuff on Ring doorbells. It happens, right? And when you hire young guys and you pay them well and they're making a lot more money than they probably should be at that age, some of them get a little bit irresponsible. So I've had bad reviews before, and every single one of them, I can't guarantee they're going to give me a shot, but they're going to get a call. I mean, that's just me. And if I've got to pay money and I've got to buy you dinner or I've got to go out and redo something, like that is just what I believe in, because we can make it back. You know, we can always make it back. And I've got a business partner now. Well, I want to give him credit. I don't want to call him out too much, but I do want to give him credit. He's gotten a lot better. And I've told him to his face, man, he's gotten a lot better since him and I have started working together. But originally, he was terrible. I mean, he was terrible. I mean, anytime we had somebody who was upset or a deal went sideways, his exact response would always be, screw him. We don't need their business. Screw them. I'm like, it's not about that, you know. And in this particular business, it's not reoccurring or recurring. You know, it's single transactions. So there's a likely chance that everything could go perfect and you never see them ever again. So I think because of that, his mentality was, well, it doesn't matter. You know, the deal's done. And I'm like, but it does, because these are the people who are going to refer us future business. And also at the same time, the one thing I always have to, I mean, I've got, you know, when you become a business owner, a lot of your friends are business owners, right?
Right.
I have to tell people, man, you are young. If you are under 65 in the business world, you are young. You don't know that this is your last venture. Like, even if you are flat out wrong, right? Even if I have an employee who quits in the worst way and he's just absolutely terrible, and I owe him $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, give him the money. Like, give him again, this that hustler mentality. I'll get another $5,000. No problem. I'll go sell another deal. Give him his $5,000, because you don't know that 5 years from now, we start a different business in a completely different space. And we need him, or we have to make a call to him, or he knows somebody. You just don't know, right? So I think a lot of people focus too much on, do I need this person to cross this bridge again in this current circumstance? And you also just don't know what's to come. You have no clue. So for me, I don't want any bridges burned, regardless if I think you ever need them, because I don't know what I'm going to be in the next 10 years. You know, I didn't know I would be in this new business. I didn't know I would ever be in this space. You know, last year I had a lash conference. I don't know jack about lashes. You know, sometimes you just stumble into opportunities and you don't know that you may not need that one person again. So for me, yes, in that situation, I'm comping that meal. And I'm pulling the VIP service card, which is what the hospitality space trains on. And I'm giving them a card, and I say, the next time you come, you call me before you get here, so I can seat you myself, and I can make sure that I give you the best server I have in the house. And if that costs me $500 to comp their meal, and it costs me, you know, a couple $100 to send them out, you know, the first round of drinks the next time they come back, I spent $600 for what? I got a second chance. And I think if you do that, and you nail it, that's why I say you got to believe in your product. If you nail it the second time, you nail it, because we're going to nail it, because I know I messed up the first time, right? CYA, right? When you get in a CYA mode, which I don't want to cuss, but cover your butt mode, when you know something has gone bad, well, now you're going to give it twice the amount of attention, and you're going to make sure it's right, and you're going to get your best people on it. So if that person comes back in that essence, I'm going to give them my best server, and I'm going to go to the house in the back and say, hey, I need this one cooked first. I know you got a lot of tickets. I appreciate you guys, but I need this one cooked first. This one is VIP for me. And I believe that second one is going to be so great, I'm going to get you back a third time. And in the restaurant industry, if you get them back 3 times, you got them for life. So to me, $500, $600, $700, whatever that cost, if you really look at it from a business perspective, eliminate the industry you're in. Customer acquisition is between 29 and 35% of your top line. So however much I think I'm going to make over the course of your lifetime, if you come to my restaurant and it's $200 and I think I'm going to get you 10 times, that's $2,000. That means I'm willing to spend $400 to $600 to get you in the door. If I got to spend that on a comp meal, that's what I think. But again, I think that's a very analytical way of thinking, and I know that not everybody thinks that way, but that's how I think.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. Our last guest we had on actually had the same mindset, where he sells a product, and it's an expensive product, and ultimately his opinion on the entire thing was, they're in the business of building relationships. They're not in the business of selling just one of their products. They want to sell 10 of them over the lifespan and really acquire that customer. Because like you said, their profit margin may be less than what it ultimately costs to get that person in the door, because like you pointed out, marketing dollars are a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And once you acquire those customers, there's a real value to that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what businesses are sold on, is essentially client goodwill, because you have a client base, and you sell that business down the road because you have a significant client base.
Yep.
So I completely agree with
Book
that.
of business has so much value. And, you know, and again, I run sales organizations, right? that's, obviously I sometimes have companies that are not centered around sales, but I mean, that's what I am. I think that at the core root of what I do, I'm a salesperson. I like to run sales organizations. And I tell my guys all the time, man, we spend all our time generating new leads. We spend all of our time generating new leads. All of our effort, the vast majority of our effort is going in, where can I get leads? You got leads right now on the phone of your existing leads. You have to deliver a good enough service to extract that, right? They exist. Just give those existing people the same amount of effort that you give to generating new leads, and they will generate them for you, right? The old rule of all companies, service obligates. Great service obligates. It presents a human obligation to reciprocate the level of appreciation and respect that you gave me as a client. If you do a great job with me, I don't care what you do. I really don't. I don't care if you're valet. If I pull up at valet and you just remembered my name from last time, and you treat me right, and you say, thanks so much, Kevin, it's great to see you. That I feel obligated. I feel obligated to know your name. And that's where you'll find yourself, whether you catch it or not, you'll find yourself like, hey, what's that guy's name? I'll ask him. I don't want to ask him. I don't want him to know. I don't have his name. I want to give him that same warm feeling he just gave me. What's his name? His name's Scott. Thanks so much, Scott. I can't wait to see you next time. Service obligates. And that's got to be a priority for anyone who wants to get in the business world, because marketing, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you have a product, a service. I don't care what it is that your business is. You have to sell it. Selling is the number one thing of all companies. All companies. Even if it's a service, you have to sell it, right? The first step to all businesses is generating a customer, right? You can't have a funnel of what you're going to do with the dollar until you can first get the dollar. So sales is everything. And if you can just recognize that just doing right by people will always keep the money coming in, then you can figure out, what the next part is, which is making sure that the money then comes out. But at the end of the day, you got to get it in the funnel first.
Yeah, we had a lady that used to work for our front desk, and her number one skill set that we still talk about to this day is she was amazing at remembering names. She would remember spouses' names, kids' names, when they graduated, if they were graduating soon. She remembered all these things about them, and it made a huge difference in that client retention, which in your business, you have reoccurring business, but you have to, sell. But in our business, it's reoccurring every single year doing the same thing. And like you said, there's a huge value to that. So in your business, you're in the roofing and construction space, and you kind of touched on this a little bit with saying, you just got into it because you enjoy business and this is something that you enjoy. But why roofing and construction? Was there like something that happened along the way that kind of pulled you to it? Why'd you jump into that space?
Yeah, I think I like to say I got lucky. I worked my butt off, but I like to think everything requires some luck. I was in the corporate world for a good period of time, and I was in the right place at the right time. I had great mentors who really saw a lot in me before I really saw it. And I just, got the opportunity to climb the corporate ladder very quickly and very, very fast. Which, I think I was ready for. I think I was very, very, very pliable at the time. I really didn't have a direction in life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So as soon as I kind of saw a taste of success, I was willing to do whatever it took. And with that being said, I got a lot of really quick and early and fast success centered around two mentors in my life. So because the timing was right and I worked hard and they put me in the right positions to get success, I really would have went anywhere if they asked me to.
Because, regardless of what they were doing.
Yeah, because if I like to say this, if either of those two guys told me, because of how quickly they helped me climb, and I don't just mean financially, I mean to become this person, to speak this way, to carry myself this way, to know what I know, like because of how quickly and aggressively they helped me develop into somebody that I was proud of, they could have told me to get in any space and I would have done it. I had so much belief in them because they had proven to me so handsomely that they deserve that belief, that they deserve that loyalty. So what happened was, as I climbed the ladder and I was looking for the next opportunity in the corporate space, I think I got to a point where I had kind of plateaued, which I was in a position far higher than I probably should have been in. So that plateau was a very good thing, but it still felt like a plateau. You
were the young person making too much money.
Yeah.
Too successful that you just referred to earlier.
For sure.
But you had them believing in you.
For sure. So, I was looking for what was next. And ultimately what ended up happening was, a mentor at the time who I was working directly for, Kurt, he was in the roofing space on the side, and he had amassed his company to a level where that side job started to pay more than his primary job. And those things kind of became very clear and indicative to us when we started to see the fruits of the labor. You know, we started to see the trips, we started to see the vehicles. And he shared that with us because we worked hard. So we got to see, you know, the lifestyle that came with that. And it wasn't necessarily just centered around the business or the money, but it really was centered around, and there was a line he said to me that really resonated with me, which I think was a big part of the transition out. But he said, Kevin, we've been spending the last, you know, X amount of years doing way more for way less. This industry is made for us, for what we do and what we do best. So it wasn't really necessarily about the business. It was more about the opportunity where our skill set and everything that we were good at could be plug and played into that industry, and we would see a much higher yield of return. So, you know, what happened was I dabbled in it in January of 2020. And then we got furloughed in March, you know, out of the fitness industry. I was running health clubs at the time. And the world shut down. And, you know, I said, you know what, maybe this is my opportunity to give it a shot. And I gave it a shot and did very well. And I saw, one, it was attainable, but then secondly, I saw the enjoyment of doing it, you know, because I came from something that was primarily centered around a high volume of low ticket sales. You know, we were selling, you know, and we were responsible for a lot. I mean, our goals were per location. I was running 15 locations, and each location was responsible to probably put up 10, 15 gym memberships a day, running a health club industry, right? And then obviously you had to keep the gym operated and all that stuff. But if we're just talking sales numbers, which is what we bonused off of, which is what we focused on, right? 10, 15 units a day per location times 15 locations, you can do the math. It's a high volume of low ticket sales. But my guys and myself, we were making, you know, 20, 30 bucks a sale. Now, granted, you're selling 10 a day, so that adds up, but you're still selling 30 bucks a day, you know, a sale. And then you get into an industry where, because again, this is why I got in the industry. So first question you asked me, there are industry experts playing businessmen, there are businessmen playing industry experts. I got into an industry, which now it's become a little bit more diluted because other people have figured it out. But at that time, all of our competition were roofers or construction guys trying to pretend to be salespeople, pretend to be business savants. And we were highly trained, highly decorated salespeople pretending to be roofers.
Right.
They couldn't compete with us. You know, they didn't dress like us. They didn't speak like us. They didn't look like us. They didn't study like us. They had no chance. You know, Chuck in a truck had no chance against me. You know, so getting into the industry, it was, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was simple because I also was working 60 hours a week in the corporate space. I come here, I put in 60 hours and I'm just me. I don't have to do anything more than just be me. Be the same studious, well put together, well spoken salesperson that I already was, and put the same amount of hours in, and I was going to yield 4x return. So that's where I really saw it. And then obviously there was a disconnect with, I got, you know, to not circle too much, but I was consulting for businesses prior to me launching my first company. You know, that was something I was always passionate about. And I had spent years helping other people launch their businesses. I had spent years helping people revamp their businesses, which is something that I primarily learned when I was in the corporate world. There was a 2-year gap where I was the company's fixer, where they would send me to failing locations. I would turn them around. They would send me to the next one. And frankly, the reason I moved up that corporate ladder so quickly is my mentor, who was at the time was my boss. We took a big gamble. You know, we were getting, to make a long story short, you know, we were getting ready to shut down our Austin locations. We weren't doing well. And I wanted to get promoted. And, you know, at the time, I think I was 20. The next job, you know, the average age of that next job, which was a vice president, was 60, 50, you know, so it's a tough ask to ask for that job. But I think I was performing at that level, and we made a gamble. And they said, if you can go turn around these locations, which hadn't profited ever, we'll give you the job. And I found out in hindsight that it was a thing that they thought we couldn't do. It was kind of a get out of my face, you know, go clean your room and I'll give you some candy. And then when they come back, you hope they forgot about it, right? And we did it, you know, and we really did turn it around relatively quick. I think we broke profit in 4 months. So we kind of became undeniable, you know, and that's kind of how I got that job. And then obviously, you know, after that, I did that a couple more times with other locations. So I understood the nuance of how to get into businesses that are not working and fix them, or how to launch them for other people. So by the time I had gotten into the roofing construction space as a salesperson, I already had a good amount of experience on helping companies, maybe not roofing companies, but helping companies launch and helping businesses launch. And I kind of got thrust into deciding to start my own because I had a really strong disconnect with the owners of the company that I was with, which were people who I knew from the previous industry. We just had very different business philosophies and we saw things very different. So it kind of, I don't want to say it forced me into starting my own roofing company, but it really thrust me into it. It really positioned me to start my own roofing company. And then obviously we had a high level of success. And then throughout that, I started the next business and then, so on and so forth. And now we end up here on whatever number we're on.
Yeah. So you've touched on this a couple times, and this is one of the things that I'm always curious to hear people say, because even highly successful people, I feel like, give different answers on this. So in your opinion, because you've mentioned luck a few times, if you were to rank hard work, luck, skill, how would you rank those? Why would you rank them that way?
I would rank it in the exact order you gave. I would rank hard work first. Frankly, there's nothing that can surpass hard work. Nothing. And I don't want to answer it clichely, but I want to be candid. Persistence breeds results. Period, point blank. You could be less talented and less lucky, but if you just keep chopping the block, you're going to get a breakthrough. Because the first thing to recognize the answer to your question is the understanding that there is no such thing as a reserved position. And I'll tell you, from somebody who did not come from a lot, you get into this mindset where you think that it is reserved. I really, truly, I remember the first time I met a millionaire. It was one of the most surreal feelings. I remember the first time that I shook hands with a billionaire. I remember the first time that I sat as close as you and I are when I took Biz Owners Ed and I got the opportunity to go to lunch with Jeff York, who founded Paycom, which is a publicly traded company, for $64 billion.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I remember the first time I sat across from a billionaire, and my first thought was, this is just a normal guy. And granted, yes, you're highly successful and you've amassed a ton of accomplishments, but you're just like a regular human being. And I didn't think that growing up. I really thought that these people at this level with these things that I wanted to accomplish, they had something that I just didn't have. They had something I wasn't born with. I couldn't have described it to you, but I just thought that it was like this secret club you couldn't get into.
I understand.
So once I discovered that you're just and also, I'm gonna tell you, one of the most motivating things in my life was not only seeing that you're a normal human being, but seeing the noticeable differences between you and I, and meeting Jeff York. Jeff York is one of the most impressive human beings ever. Smart as a tax. He knows his stuff. He knows everything. But my first thought was, you're normal. And my second thought was, you're also 60-something. So do I think that if I work my tail end off every day for the next 35 years that I can't become that? Right. And that is really where that high regard of hard work came in, because it showed me whatever it is that I'm watching is attainable with compounded work. If you just compound your work, if you read a book every year and you compound that across 30 years, that's 30 books. Mm-hmm. And if I told you, can you read 30 books? I don't know. But everything compounds. Work compounds. Now, skill set does not compound. Luck does not compound. But work does. Hard work compounds. Go out, lift weights. Just lift 2 weights. Do 2 reps a day. Eventually, you did 2,000 reps. It all compounds. So to me, hard work will always be the biggest thing, because it's the one thing that will always gain traction. I think luck, to me, is number 2. And I want to be very clear on what I think luck is. I don't think luck is just this random occurrence where something found you. I think luck is positioning. That's the best way I could describe luck. I think it's positioning. If you wake up early in the morning, which most people won't, and you go outside and you find $100 on the floor, I think that you were lucky because you woke up early in the morning. You put yourself in a position to amass that luck, because there are I've had some passionate conversations with people, passionate about this, where I don't think they're positioning themselves to be lucky. They're always asking for their break, and they're like, nobody gives me a chance, and nobody wants to do this with me, and nobody wants to give me an opportunity. It's like, but you don't come off as somebody who people gravitate their decisiveness of wanting to give an opportunity to. For me, I've always believed if you want to get lucky, And right now I'm in business. I'm gonna tell you right now I'm in 2 businesses right now that I don't get without luck. Don't get it. Right now, do not make the money that we're making without luck, because I felt I put myself in a position where when I got around these people, I showed myself in a good light, and they said, we like you. Like, we want you around more. And then that turned into, would you be willing to do this for us? And then doing that right turned into, would you be willing to do this for us on a consistent basis? And then that turned into, would you be willing to get in bed with us? You know, from a business perspective. But if I was in that same room when that relationship first blossomed and I wasn't clean cut, and I don't mean that just like physically. I mean, you're not clean cut. You're not on point. You're not speaking well. You don't care how you carry yourself. You don't pay attention to how is your hair cut, or you're wearing cologne, or your clothes fit. Do you talk well? How do you treat the people? Like, those things position your luck. And I truly believe that I got lucky to be in those business ventures that I'm in now, that I'm making good money off of. But I position myself to be lucky.
Well, it all also reverts back to one consistent theme that you've carried through the whole thing, is you have to do everything that you do with excellence every single time. And obviously there's mistakes, but you have to do everything with excellence, because that leads to the opportunities that you get, quote, lucky on,
of course,
down the road.
It's positioning. That's the best way I describe the word luck, is positioning. And then, you know, third, skill set is a critical component. Skill set is great, but skill set is also one of the biggest detriments to people who have it. I mean, that's just real talk. I truly believe that I'm extremely skilled. I think my skills are very blatant and obvious, but skills will also cloud your judgment on the other two. People who are highly talented in things, who can get away with things without putting in the work or without positioning themselves to be lucky. You know, okay, I want to give this one. One of the toughest realizations in my personal life, which I think everyone kind of needs to hear. To first understand what I'm going to describe, and this is a nugget I'm going to give you. To first understand what I'm describing, I have to first get you to understand. I see I see life as a game, and I don't want that to think I think it's childish or playful, but I think it has a very game-like feel. Right? You don't get to decide what level. Right? Imagine if in this metaphor there's 1 to 100 levels that in this world. You don't get to decide which one you're born into. Right? It's not fair to me that I was born maybe on level 6, and there's other people who are born into a billionaire family at level 97. It's not fair. It's not fair that I'm not a Jenner, right? But it is what it is, right? You start at whatever level the game loads you into at, and you make a decision as to if you want to put in the work to get to the next level. When you get to the next level, and I don't want this to seem all financial, but unfortunately or fortunately or circumstantially, however you see it, the way that our society is, income is the grading scale that we center everything around. Your socioeconomic status is typically, for men especially, is typically centered around your financial income or your financial earning ability. So you get to decide how many levels you want to go up. And every time you level up, you make a little bit more money. A lot of things will change. Things get unlocked with that level. You might get different cars. You might have different friend groups. Your vacations look a little bit different. Your problems look a little bit different. Because when you get to the level where you own a boat like us, well, them mofos break down every 3 days, you know, and I didn't have that problem when I was at a lower level. I didn't have to worry about what goes wrong on my boat. I didn't have a boat. Yeah. So each level unlocks new things, and you make a decision as an individual of when you want to stop, when you're at a level that you want to stop at, right? I'm at a level now where it's like, okay, I like this level, and I like what it comes with. I like the friends that I have. I like the vacation. But then sometimes you're like, I want to get to a higher level. So that's a kind of core establishment of how I really see the philosophy of life. Now, here's the toughest realization that I made. It's really pertinent and relevant to the question of skill set.
Sure. Every
time you reach a pivotal level, your skill set becomes less and less relevant. So I'll analogize this. If I were in middle school and I'm on the middle school basketball team, I'm the best player in the school, best player, right? I don't really have to go to practice much. I can just show up. I know I can drop 30 points, and everybody lets me do whatever I want because I'm the best kid in that school. So when I get to high school, right? Well, now I'm not the best kid in that high school. I just got to the high school, and maybe my skill set will let me get out there and compete and earn a starting job. But I had to start all over. I had to earn my respect again. I had to get back in the weight room. I had to show my coach, my new coach, that I'm really like that I'm that good. And maybe I'm lucky enough to be the best kid in that high school, right? So a college decides to recruit me, and they say, Kevin, you're averaging X amount of points. We want you to come to our college. And I said, you know what? I'm the man. Like, I'm the best guy at this high school. I've been cooking. Everybody's looking at me. So I go to that college. Happens all over again. Now you are not the best kid in that school anymore. Frankly, you ain't crap. And you got to start that cycle all over again. And you have to earn your rank all over again. And then as you get higher and higher in the levels, the gap of skill, right? The skill gap, per called, gets smaller and smaller, right? When I went from middle school to high school, I probably am still the best kid. But when I get to a Division I college, every single person in that Division I college on that team, every one of them was the best kid in their high school.
Right.
There ain't a single kid playing Division I basketball that was not the best kid in their high school. So that whole, I'm the guy, I've got the most skill set, I can come here without practice, that is dead. And if I don't embrace in that new level that I have to now become the hardest working person and I rely only on my skill set, I won't even be in the top half of this level.
Right.
And let's say I go, you know what? I see that, I can embrace that, and I'm going to be the hardest working person in this college because I want to get to the next level. So I decide to be the hardest person in that Division I school, and I get in the NBA draft. That thing starts all over again because every single person on that NBA roster was the best player in their Division I college. That is something that I said, but my skill set, as I said in the beginning of this, my skill set took me really far, really fast. I went from a salesperson waving a sign on the street, from a salesperson to a sales manager to a general manager to a district manager to a district vice president in under 2 years for a Fortune 500 company, right? A privately owned couple $1 billion valuated company quickly. So to me, every level, I didn't realize this. I didn't need to because I went from middle school to high school to college all not having to work that hard. And again, I worked hard, but there came a point where I got to a room where everybody worked that hard, right? Like everyone worked that hard. Everyone was that good. Where my ability to speak well didn't mean jack because everyone in this room can speak that well. And when I first processed that, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was tough. It was very tough because you have to decide, am I now willing to embark on this journey? And frankly, I did because I'm a hyper competitor, but I also processed in that moment that I could see a lot of people saying no. A lot of people saying, I think I'm good right here, and what motivated me more than anything was knowing that was going to weed out a lot of people and I don't have to compete with them.
So then in that moment, did you feel yourself being humbled because of the people that you're around? Did it feel a sense of embarrassment? Was it frustrating?
I wouldn't say that. I would definitely say it was frustrating because internally, for me to me only, I had to process that my skill set wasn't enough, because again, I work hard, but I worked hard at that time relevant to my skill set. I used to work as hard as I needed to be the best person I knew. But the issue is as you start to amass, in the way I look at it, higher and higher levels, the people increase. And all of a sudden, I wasn't the sharpest tool. I wasn't the highest earner. I wasn't the fastest and best talker. And I don't want to say it was bad, but it was a dark and really heavy lesson that once I processed, which I'm not saying it took long, but once I really kind of processed that, like, okay, I'm at this level now. I'm now in the NBA and I'm the 15th man on the bench. I'm not number one anymore. In order to really embark on the journey to become a starter, let alone an all-star, let alone a Hall of Famer, because those are all different levels, you don't have the time to sulk in that, right? If you're going to get on the journey, you got to go now. And that was truly how it feels. And I think that's how all journeys feel, right? If we reach the bottom of the mountaintop and you finally look at it for the first time in person and you go, holy crap, that's a lot higher than I thought. Well, at the end of the day, if we're going to get up there, we got to go because we don't have the time to sit here staring at it. You got to make a decision right now. Are we going or are we not? Are we going or are we not? And for me, there was no way I was going to get to the bottom of the mountain and then look at everybody and go, yeah, I'm not going to do it. even though I metaphorically thought the mountain was not as tall as it is, I signed up to climb it, and now that we're looking at it, which is what that realization was for me, the only way to climb it is to start right now. Start right now. You have no time to dwell on it. If we're going to do it, let's do it. And that is kind of how that quickly just turned into the journey of, okay, let's figure out how to now outwork everybody at this level. And I had to realize, which I hope everyone does, until you say this is the level I want to stop at, that reset will be never ending. And the skill gap at each level will become tighter and tighter and tighter. Because you want to become an all-star. And again, you can use any sport, any organization, any analogy. You want to get to the next level. As you climb, the competition for that next level gets tighter and tighter and tighter, right? If you're an attorney and you're an associate and you want to become a partner, the other associates are a lot closer than what it was when you were an intern. You could separate yourself from the other interns pretty quickly. But now you're trying to become a partner. Everybody's that good. So what is it that's going to really separate you from the other people? And I think that's a culmination of all three of those things we discussed. So I do put that in that order. I really do. I put hard work at number one. I put positioning of luck. And then thirdly, I put skill set. Because I think if you don't have any skill set, I really believe this from the bottom of my heart. If you don't have any skill set whatsoever, but you work your tail end off and you position yourself for success, one of the best things an old mentor named Ed Husted told me, which he didn't teach me much. He was a little bit of an a-hole, but he did teach me this. He said, if you want to get to the next level, this is exactly what he said. You must assume the opportunity before it arises, and that will make you the obvious choice. You have to assume the opportunity before it rises. If I want to get promoted to the next job in this metaphor, I want to become the general manager and I'm, a sales guy. I need to carry myself like a GM. I need to dress like a GM. I need to speak like a GM. I need to know the GM's job. I need to think that way. I need to be focused on our location goals. I need to know where we're at in terms of the monthly revenue. I need to know that. And what's going to happen is I'm going to start to carry myself in that light. And when it's time for the next GM, it's going to be so obvious to everyone else. And you're the obvious choice that if anyone else gets that over you, people are surprised. People are like, what, they promoted who? What? That's how you know you're obvious. And sometimes when the door doesn't open for you, your only option is to kick it down. And being the obvious choice is what forces you to kick it down. And not to take a dark turn, but coming up in positions of the corporate world, being young and black, I had to make myself really obvious because I really felt in that particular decision tree, I wasn't the obvious choice. If it was close, they weren't going to pick me. I was too young and I was impulsive at the time and I wasn't as mature as I was now. So I had to make it so obvious that I was that guy that they overlooked all those inevitable deficiencies.
Right. Well, so you've kind of jumped into maybe some of the challenges that you faced in life. And to be honest with you, Kevin, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because you are a successful individual. You're still a fairly young guy, so you've got a lot of things ahead of you. But one of the things that I know a little bit about, and I'd love to hear more about, is how Kevin came to be as far as your personal life, your family life, because like you said, you were on level 6, if that.
Yeah.
And some people are born with so much more than you. So I want you to demonstrate really how there's a level of success that can be attained regardless of where you start.
Yeah, I mean that's my life passion, frankly. One of the reasons that, I'm so that I, talk about GOAT and great is because I'm obsessed with greatness. That is the thing that drives me more than anything on this earth, more than money, more than building, more than attainment, more than fun. I'm obsessed with greatness in all facets of life. That is my life passion, is being great. And I truly believe that everyone on this earth, no matter what your situation or circumstance, has the ability to be great, a great you, and what you can contribute to the world. And if you are great, people will pay you for it. And you can attain, and this is what I kind of alluded to initially in this conversation. You can attain anything. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I thought that it was a reserved position. What really fueled me more than anything, Summit I came up in a really humble situation. And frankly, my family was 9 people. There was only 9 of us. My grandmother had 4 kids. They all had 1 kid. I'm a grown man sitting here today, and I don't know where any of these spouses were. Don't know. Still don't know. Don't know where my dad's at. Never met my dad. Don't know where my cousin's dad was. I don't know where any of these people are. I've never met anybody's spouse. So there was 9 people total in our family.
And your mom raised you by herself, single mom.
My mom tried. I don't want to speak too ill will, but I also don't think I could confidently say she tried her best. She tried, kind of, I guess. My grandmother was everything. My grandmother is everything. My grandmother is the most kind-hearted, strong-willed woman in the world. And with the way that my family was, everyone knew she would catch them if they fell. They knew they had a crutch. And this is where I really started to understand the psychology of human dichotomy. I knew that everyone knew they had a crutch, so they chose to fail. They saw failure as an option. They knew that they could fail. They knew that if they could not pay their rent, they didn't have to figure it out. They could move back with her. And seeing that at a young age, it really implanted into me that I didn't want to be that. And it was not for me. It wasn't that I want to be better than them. It was frankly, straight up, the reason that I was so driven to become successful. I know this from the bottom of my heart, is I did not want to be another burden on my grandmother. I refused. And there was a period of, again, it's a long story, but there was a period of my time where I was homeless and slept outside. And my grandmother would have took me in. If I called her and said, I'm sleeping outside, she would have said, come here, I got a warm plate and a bed for you. But I refused. Like, I could not do that. I just, once I did that, I felt like I would have felt like rock bottom to me. Sleeping outside would have felt like a higher level than being another Ebbs sleeping on my grandmother's couch. So it forced me into, how am I going to create a level of success where I never have to even face that option? And once I saw the traction, once I saw that it was possible, and I'd be lying to you if I always thought it was possible. I really didn't. But there were other people who did. And there were people who looked at me and saw something in me that I didn't believe in. But I trusted them enough to just kind of follow. And eventually the success started to compile and I started to see it. And then eventually I believed it. And then the fruit to the fire was the ability to give back to her. Once I saw that I was creating a level of success that could give her things that she hadn't had, it was a fire that you couldn't, I mean, it was a whole nother level unlocked in me, because I think the first half of my life was the fight to survive. And then it became the fight to thrive, right?
So that's interesting, because anybody who knows you, this Kevin today, and you and I have known each other for a few years now,
Mm-hmm.
so I still know basically this Kevin. You're confident. You feel like you can do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we laugh about it, but it really is who you are.
Yeah.
You feel like you can heart through anything.
I really do, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear that at one point, it sounds like maybe teenage Kevin, there was times where you would not have said that about yourself,
No.
and you were not that person.
Yeah, it wasn't times. It was fully me. I mean, I believe I became a completely different person.
Do you think it's because of the circumstances that you were born into that you just doubted yourself?
Yeah, I think it's all circumstantial. I think everybody in life is a product of their circumstance. But I also think that they have the willingness and the ability to control their circumstance, which will then influence their personality. But I think everyone is a product of their circumstance. There are people on this planet right now who were born into wealth and they take it for granted. And there are people right now who are born into poverty that are humble and appreciative for the one meal a week they get to eat. Neither of them are wrong. To perspective, we think that one is wrong. We think that kid who was born into money, who has no self-worth, is wrong. But he's also a product of his circumstance as well. Now, it is his responsibility to take control of that and make the necessary adjustments to be the person that he's supposed to be. But I don't blame you for that. I can't blame you for what you were born into. I don't hold any blame for me for what I was born into, but I did at a young age. It was the maturity that got me to really see that it's just not fair. You can't be penalized for the cards the dealer gives you. Yeah. Now, what I can penalize you for is the decisions you make once you get those cards. Once you get them and you assess them, it's now you're playing the game. And if you want to sit there and pout that your cards suck and his don't, you're never going to compete.
Well, life's not fair.
It's not. And that's that same analogy I said at the mountaintop. Regardless of what your expectation was, now you're facing it. What are you going to do? So I felt I was dealt some crap cards. I feel I was dealt some crap cards. But I also felt that I got the understanding that's like, it ain't going to change. They're not going to give me new cards because mine sucks. There's no manager I can call in life and go, hey, God, my cards suck. I'd like a redo. It is what it is. You're in the casino now. So you got to decide, are you going to play or not? I mean, that's just, and I know that sounds like crap and it sounds so simple, and it's like, but you don't get it. And a lot of that justification will creep in. We're like, well, you don't understand. And it's like, it doesn't matter though. Like, that's what you're dealt.
Well, then, so let's specifically ask this because, yeah, you were dealt with a bad hand of cards. Let's just be frank about it.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But you're a completely different person than where you started back then. There are lots of younger guys who are in that spot that you were in not that long ago.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything specifically that you would tell those people, like, do this one thing that you can control right now, or try to work towards this that you think is a very practical, tangible thing that they could do to change themselves?
Yeah, this is what I did specifically. And I don't know that I knew this at the time, but I figured this out over the years. I looked at the most successful person I know and I emulated him. And what happened was, as I became more successful, I was able to change who I was emulating, or at least start to compile an emulation of multiple people. But I looked at at that time, I didn't have, again, I didn't have father. I didn't have a father figure. I didn't have an uncle. I didn't have a grandfather. I didn't even have a male figure to look up to. My whole family's women. It's my grandmother, and she all got women. I didn't have a dude to look up to. True story. When I was really young, I look at Peyton Manning on TV like he was my dad because I liked how he spoke. I wanted to speak like that. Everybody who knows me knows, the person I'm most, that I emulate most before I finally met someone in fruition was LeBron James. Because I saw someone who carried himself the way that I wanted to carry myself. I looked at my circumstance and I looked for someone who gave me a beacon of light. LeBron didn't have a dad. LeBron was in a very tough situation. And it wasn't just about how he played basketball. I watched, and I've told this to people and I don't know that they will, but I emulated him entirely. I watched his interviews. I watched how he spoke. I watched how he thought about his answer before he gave it. I watched how he carried himself. I watched how he dressed. I watched how he made sure his hair was always cut. I watched how he made sure to give the political answer. I watched everything, and I emulated it. And when I finally got into a position, which I think was lucky, but I think this was me positioning myself for luck, where I physically met a role model in real life that wasn't on television or YouTube, I emulated him. And when I remember my first real check, real money, like the first time I ever got real money, I made a $10,000 check. First time. I called off that day and went and bought a BMW. Asked me why I wanted a white BMW. I don't know, but that's what I wanted. I wanted a white BMW. It wasn't until I became a lot older and more successful that I realized in the subconscious of my brain, I wanted a white BMW because my mentor drove a white BMW. Just what I wanted. I collected watches at a very young age because my mentor collected watches. I wanted to I wear suits all the time now. I wanted to wear suits because he wore suits. I just wanted to look for somebody that was at a level that I wanted to be at, and I learned how to become that. And that transcribed into not just, and again, I'm giving you some examples. I dressed the way I wanted to be like. I found a collection of the things that he collected, which gave me something to aspire toward, something to reward myself with. I wanted to speak that way, which required me to read books. I don't like reading. I hate reading. I'm not a reader. I read, but I hate it. But it was a necessary evil to get to what I wanted to get to, right? I wanted to be like that. And in order to be like that, I was going to have to read these books. So what happened was I became really, really, really fixated on becoming this, that it helped me deal with things I didn't want to do. Because I don't care about these things. I want that. And that's the thing that I could tell people is, if I asked you to do things you didn't like, would you do it? Probably not. But if I made a deal with you and said, hey, if you do these 5 things, I will give you this, and this is what you want, would you do those things? Yes. Because it's a deal. It's a trade out. That's what I kind of mentally made in my head. Now, at the time, I didn't realize that. I just realized I was just trying to become this person. That's what I did. I looked for the most successful person I know. And you got to be careful with that because success is relative. There are some people who might hear that and go, okay, well, my corner drug dealer is the most successful guy I know. right? When I say the most successful people, it's the person you want to be like, the person you aspire to be. And for me, whenever I was able to make that drastic change, I try my best to be an inspiration for others. I really do.
I think that, like, so let's talk about that, because I think you can kind of differentiate between, as you pointed out, like a drug dealer and somebody who you and I would define as successful. I think that success is more than just money.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of maybe the other things that people should look for in a quote successful person that they could emulate?
Yeah, I mean, I define success in a very simple sentence. It is your ability to attain a predetermined goal. That's what I think success is. So if you want to know how to be successful or who to look for in success, you have to first determine what you want, because not everybody wants money. And if you're not focused on money, if you're focused on autonomy, or you're focused on being able to spend the most time with your family, or you're focused on, maybe having the best quality of life with animals, or you're focused on traveling the most countries in the world, then money may not be the thing that you define as success. But getting whatever it is that you want, whatever you want, you have to find somebody who is attaining that. I know I have friends who went skydiving, quit their jobs to become skydive instructors because they love skydiving. They don't give a crap about money. They don't even care if they get paid. They just want to be able to skydive. The person that they should be emulating is very different than the person that I should be emulating, because we define success in a very different vertical. So I really think success is your ability to attain a predetermined goal. Whatever your predetermined goal is will determine how you can generate that success and who you should be looking for in that success. So if you have no clue and you just feel like you're lost in the dark, you got to first ask yourself, like, what do I really want out of my life? And that's a tough question. The best way to ask it, don't look at the journey. If I had a magic wand right now and I said, I want you to define right now, paint it to me like it's ChatGPT, describe it in your best way possible what your dream life looks like. And you got to be descriptive, right? You got to be descriptive with the Genie or with ChatGPT. You can't just say, I want to be successful or I want $1 million. What does it look like? Who's with you? Do you have family? Do you not have family? Do you live in a house? Where is your house? What do you have? What toys do you have? Do you have kids? Do you have cars? Do you have boats? Do you have planes? Do you live in a van? Do you travel the world? Do you climb mountains? Like, describe what it is you want to attain out of life. First, do that. Then look at somebody who is at a pinnacle of attaining that. Then start that journey to become that person. And then as you get closer and closer to your goal in that journey, you'll start to meet other people who are on that journey. And those people will now give you a benchmark of the things that you have to work on. Because to a certain point, you got to this level based off whatever it is. It could be skill, luck, or hard work, as we discussed. But now you're around other people who probably got to that level utilizing other aspects. So now I can look at other people on that same journey as me and go, okay, here's some things that I need to work on based off of what he's good at. And we're both competing in the same ring, right? So that to me is really how I think you boil it down in its simplest terms, is you got to figure out what you want and figure out who's on that path.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you said, bottom line is, if you're talking with young Kevin or somebody that was born in your kind of situation, the one thing that they can definitely do, regardless of what they're looking at, is figure out what they want and then figure out a mentor, whether that be through, like you said, even the TV.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you do not know anybody physically in your realm of people that you would want to be like, find somebody on television and emulate them.
In all aspects. Yeah, my first two mentors were Peyton Manning and LeBron James. It's a true story.
Yeah. I've got so many more questions that we'll have to bring you back on and talk to you more about later. But we'll wrap up with this. What's in the future for Kevin? Maybe, here in the next 5 years, 10 years, where do you see yourself? What are some of the things that you're working on to get to that point?
Yeah, I need to close up this lawsuit and sell my company. I think that's the thing that we're really prioritizing, what we're going to do and how we're going to play that out, so I can, effectively, get that transaction done. And then the goal's been pretty clear for me for a long time. I want to really build an empire and amass a large scale of companies centered around people who love what they do. That's the mission that I'm on right now. I want to be the back end of, and this has changed. When I was younger, I was really focused on being the face of a business. I was really focused on being the guy, and I wanted to be the man in charge and get all the awards and the accolades. And I did that. I really did. And I realized it wasn't what I wanted. You know, I want to change as many lives as possible. And that's not just in a client basis or customer basis, but a lot of times it's in what we discussed earlier is this guy who loves this thing, and I can help him build that into an organization that allows him to do that full time and prosper and make money and take care of his family. So the goal has been the same for the last couple of years, is to continue to build companies, hopefully be able to retain them and not have to sell them. Although if I have to, I have to. But I want to start to amass, you know, a family of businesses and organizations that are really running with the right people, and we have, you know, a collective brain of what we want to accomplish. And you know, the retirement number is 100. You know, I want to have 100 companies with 100 CEOs and full teams and developments. And I understand that that's a lifelong journey. Most people will spend their life building one. So asking myself to try and build 100, let alone 50 or 20 is pretty challenging, but that's the goal. And I think that's the goal, that if we can get to that point, we can say that, you know, we built 100 organizations and we have 100 boards that are in a good position and their families are taken care of because of what we collectively have built. So that's ultimately what that goal is. Now, does that happen in 5 years? Probably not, but hopefully in 5 years we can chip away at that number and get to 15 or 20, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good goal. Let's shoot out a couple of just fun, quick questions, and then we'll wrap it up. So what is your favorite thing to waste money on?
I'm gonna say cars. I'm gonna say cars. I actually I haven't told you this yet. This just happened yesterday, but I traded in my G-Wagon for a new G-Wagon.
Oh, okay.
So we're excited about that. I think cars, man. I spent a ton of money on cars. I think when you first met me, I had 6 cars, which was very irresponsible. I just love cars, man.
Yeah, I'm a car guy too. Our last guest was a car guy. Legitimately, that's what he does for a living. So I completely relate to that. You also mentioned watches.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most expensive watch you've ever bought?
I think it's the Wimbledon. That was 18. I actually just bought a watch 2 months ago, and I sold it to Gabe. I gave it to him at value too for his wedding coming up. So yeah, watches are a great game. You know, again, when we start making a little bit of money, you got to find a side hustle, right? Watches are a good game. You can buy a watch, you can hold it for a month or two, flip it for $2, $3, $4, $5 so I think that's a game everybody should get in.
Yep. And then last fun question here. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
An hour at the end, because those are 2 different answers.
Let's say now.
I love it here. This is my first place, but if it wasn't here, I would want to be somewhere hot that I could work. So I'd be looking somewhere with a beach. At the end, I'm thinking mountains. I think I'm going to spend my whole life in the city and in the chaos of work, that I want to get to a point where, I know this is so weird, but I say I want my Thanos story. You know, I want to be able to sit in a cabin and just be done. And, you know, I want the end of my life to be no electronics, don't have to check my email, don't have to check my 3 cell phones that have been going off this whole time. Like I want a cabin in the woods, but I don't want that now. I don't even remotely find that attractive now, but I think that's what I want in the end. I can see it, you know. Yeah. This is my Thanos story.
Yeah. And then the last thing, and we'll wrap up with this. So if you can give entrepreneurs, whether it's people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs, in maybe 30 seconds, what would be the best advice you could give them on either getting started or just continuing on the journey?
I think those are 2 different answers. If you're getting started, I think the best advice I can give you is go. I know it sounds so stupid and everybody cliche tells you just got to do it, but you do. And you have to make sure that you have no option but to win. The vast majority, 80% of businesses fail within the first year. And they fail because I think a lot of people give themselves an out. They tell themselves that out is an option. You'd be surprised how many businesses I've consulted on pre-launch where I look at the business plan and they've given themselves 6 months of financial cushion. Why? I just brought on some talent last month. I just hired 2 guys, you know, had to give signing bonuses to hire some talent last month. And their initial ask of their signing bonus was to give themselves 2-3 months of float. Why? You're giving yourself an out. Don't give yourself an out. you have to put yourself in a position where you have no choice but to win. Every business that I know that started with and I'm not saying you have to go in this irresponsibly, but every person that I know that has really started with a game plan of financial float, they don't make it because you know it's there. You know you have that financial float. You need to put yourself in a position where when the alarm goes off, you have no choice but to wake up. Don't set an alarm knowing you can technically snooze it for 10 minutes. What's going to happen is you're going to snooze it for 10 minutes. And one of these times, it's going to take 11 minutes for you to wake up, and now you're behind the ball. Set the alarm for when you must wake up. One alarm. And I know this might be a little piggyback, but I think this is great advice. I hate to see highly motivated people with multiple alarms in the morning. One, no option. No option. You get up. You have no choice. You're giving your mind the ability to say no. F that. We have no choice. We have no choice but to win. We have no choice but to succeed. So my advice to those starting is just go and make sure you have no out. And then my advice for those people who are on that journey that are struggling, you got to believe in yourself. The reason you started this journey is because you believed in yourself. And unfortunately, business will beat you down. It will beat you down. And the number one reason that business owners get that they really get burned down is because nobody else knows what they're going through. Most business owners are struggling. It's tough to make payroll. They're having to make sacrifices, and they feel that they're in this lone wolf situation because they're trying to protect their company and their team and their business and their brand from all the things that they're going through, so they pretend it's not happening. Give you some game. You got to keep going, but you're not alone. And you'd be surprised how many of your people you could really confide into as to the situation that you're in, whether it be financial or not. Just tell them. Let them know what's up, and you'll be surprised that they have your back. So it's a journey, and a journey requires ebbs and flows, and you just got to keep going.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this podcast will kind of represent that, like you're saying, let people know they're not alone, hear from other entrepreneurs, whether they're struggling or being successful, and be a good representation of that. So, Kevin, we really appreciate you coming on, man. We'll definitely have you back on because we've got probably more than half the questions.
Another episode.
So, well, thanks, Kevin.
Sounds good.